Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking a major federal savings initiative that, well, it feels incredibly timely for just about anyone who earns a paycheck.
Absolutely.
We're looking at a new universal retirement accounts proposal, and this was just recently announced by President Donald Trump during his Tuesday night State of the Union address.
Right. Tuesday night.
Yeah. And to really get a grip on what this means for you, for the future of your money, we are pulling from a very specific stack of sources.
We have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do.
Yeah.
We've got the text excerpts outlining the proposal itself. We're looking at the mechanical details baked into the existing Secure 2.0 federal law. And we have some highly revealing census data.
Which is fascinating data.
Oh, it is. It was recently analyzed by the Economic Innovation Group. So we're going to unpack all of that.
But before we jump in, and because we are dissecting a policy initiative tied to a presidential State of the Union address, this is the perfect moment to establish our ground rules for you listening.
Good call.
Our objective today is strictly analytical. We are not endorsing any political administration, any platform or ideology, and we are absolutely not taking political sides.
No, not at all.
Our purpose is just to look under the hood. We are here to impartially lay out the mechanics, examine the hard demographic data, and explore the economic ideas contained within the original source material.
Just the facts.
Exactly. We are treating this as a structural blueprint, analyzing the what and the how without making any judgments on the partisan politics surrounding it.
And that separation is absolutely vital because the numbers we're about to discuss affect the workforce regardless of political affiliation.
They affect everyone.
Right. So let's jump right into the core question here. What exactly is this universal account proposal, and how might it fundamentally alter the way Americans save for the future?
Well, to understand the proposed solution, we really have to establish the sheer scale of the problem it's attempting to solve first.
Right, the gap. During the address, the president highlighted what he framed as a gross disparity in wealth building. I actually have his exact quote here.
Go ahead.
He said, "Your 401ks are way up, yet half of all working Americans still do not have access to a retirement plan with matching contributions from an employer."
And, when you hear a rhetorical flourish like half of all working Americans in a major political speech, the immediate instinct is to assume it's an exaggeration.
Oh, for sure. You assume it's political spin.
Right. But the hard data in our source stack paints a picture that is remarkably close to that rhetoric.
It really does.
According to an analysis of census data by the Economic Innovation Group, and I should note, they are a bipartisan public policy organization, the reality of the American workforce is deeply fragmented.
Highly fragmented.
They found that a staggering 42% of American workers do not have access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan.
42%. That is a massive block of the country.
It's huge.
And the data specifically notes that this figure actually excludes government workers and self-employed individuals.
Yes, that's a crucial distinction.
So we are talking strictly about everyday private sector employees here. And when you really think about who makes up that 42%, it starts to reflect the changing nature of how we work today.
The whole landscape is different.
Exactly. We're looking at the explosion of the gig economy, independent contractors, and just millions of employees at small businesses.
Because small businesses face unique hurdles.
Right. Often small business owners simply cannot afford the steep administrative overhead, the compliance testing, the management fees required to set up and maintain a traditional corporate 401k for their staff.
It's just too expensive for them. And the demographic breakdown of that group is crucial context. And the data from the Economic Innovation Group goes even further to compound the issue. Because for the workers who actually fall into the 58% that do have access to a retirement plan,
The lucky ones, supposedly.
right, more than half of them do not receive an employer match. So when the proposal addresses workers lacking access to a plan with matching contributions, it is addressing a systemic shortfall that affects the vast majority of the middle and lower income workforce.
Reading through these numbers, the current retirement landscape in America feels less like a public infrastructure and more like an incredibly exclusive club.
That's a good way to put it.
Like inside this club, workers have 401ks, they have automatic payroll deductions, they get employer matches. They are essentially being handed free capital to build long-term wealth.
All shielded from immediate taxes, too.
Exactly. But outside the club, there is a velvet rope. And 42% of the American workforce is standing out on the sidewalk, completely locked out of the primary wealth-building vehicle of the modern era.
Just looking in.
Yeah. And even some of the people who manage to get past the velvet rope look around and realize, hey, there's no employer match waiting for me anyway.
The velvet rope analogy captures the bifurcation perfectly. The system, as it operates today, dictates your financial trajectory, largely based on the size and structure of your employer.
Which is kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is. If you work for a large corporation with a robust human resources department, you are placed on a relatively automated path to wealth accumulation.
It's done for you.
Right. But if you work for a local diner, a startup, or you drive for a rideshare app, you are entirely on your own.
You have to figure it all out.
You have to navigate the complexities of setting up individual accounts, manually transferring funds, and doing it all without the benefit of matching funds.
Which is the magic ingredient.
It is the very mechanism that accelerates compounding interest over a multi-decade career.
Which brings us directly to the proposed solution aimed at taking down that velvet rope. Here's where it gets really interesting. The administration announced that, starting next year, they plan to give these oft-forgotten American workers access to a new type of retirement account.
The universal accounts.
Yes. The goal is to provide workers who lack employer-sponsored plans with a viable, robust, and federally backed alternative.
And they have a specific model in mind.
Right. The White House notes reveal a fascinating detail here. They aren't trying to invent a completely new financial instrument from scratch. They are modeling these new universal accounts on the Thrift Savings Plan, or the TSP.
Utilizing the TSP as the structural model is a very significant choice regarding administrative efficiency.
Can you explain the TSP a bit for those who might not be familiar?
Of course. So for context, the Thrift Savings Plan is the retirement system currently available to federal employees and members of the uniformed services.
Oh.
It is a massive, highly streamlined system that essentially functions as the government's version of a private sector 401k.
Makes sense.
Participants choose from a curated menu of broad market index funds designed to suit different risk tolerances, and contributions are automatically deducted directly from their paychecks.
That automatic payroll deduction is the psychological magic trick of retirement saving.
It really is the key.
When the money is routed directly into an investment account before it ever hits your checking account, you never mentally account for it in your monthly budget.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. You systematically save without having to summon the discipline to make a conscious transfer every single payday.
And doing that manually is hard for people.
Really hard. So the proposal aims to take this massive, low-fee TSP model and open its doors to the private sector workers currently standing on the outside.
Which is a huge shift.
Huge. But as we look at the mechanics outlined in the sources, two specific features make this proposed universal account fundamentally different from your standard company 401k.
And the first one is portability.
Yes, portability, that stood out to me immediately.
Portability addresses one of the most glaring structural flaws in the current tethered 401k system. The proposal states that these new accounts would travel with the worker regardless of where they are employed.
Or how many times they change jobs.
Exactly.
In the modern economy, that is a game changer. I mean, the days of working at the same manufacturing plant for 40 years and retiring with a gold watch and a pension are largely over. Millennials and Gen Z workers are changing jobs, pivoting careers, or moving in and out of freelance work every few years.
It's much more fluid now.
Yeah. And when an account is completely portable, it belongs entirely to you, the individual, rather than existing as an extension of your current employer's benefits package.
The administrative and psychological friction of our current system cannot be overstated.
It's a headache.
It's a massive headache. When a worker leaves a job today, their 401k often becomes an orphaned account. To consolidate their savings, they have to navigate complex rollover paperwork.
Nobody wants to do that paperwork.
Nobody. You deal with different brokerage firms, try to avoid accidental taxable events, and because of that friction, a staggering number of workers simply choose to cash out their small accounts when they leave a job.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
It's terrible for long-term growth. They take a massive early withdrawal penalty, they pay income taxes on the balance, and they effectively reset their compound interest clock to zero. But a fully portable account that serves as a permanent, lifelong financial anchor eliminates that friction entirely.
You just set it up once.
Yeah.
And it stays with you, whether you are driving an Uber, working at a tech startup, or just taking a year off.
It follows you.
Now, the second feature that really caught my eye in the White House notes is the mention of private donors.
That is a very unique element.
It is. The text explicitly states that the proposal would allow contributions into these universal accounts from private donors. That represents a massive shift in how we think about funding retirement.
It is a profound structural addition. Now, the sources do not provide a granular breakdown of the regulatory framework for these private donors yet,
Right, we don't have all the tiny details.
but the implication is that funding sources would no longer be restricted solely to the worker's own paycheck and their employer's matching program.
Which opens the door to an entirely new ecosystem of retirement funding.
Right.
Think about the practical applications of that. Unlike an individual retirement account, or IRA, which you generally have to set up and fund entirely on your own with after-tax dollars, this universal account could accept third-party injections.
From anywhere, theoretically.
Right. You could have philanthropic organizations creating matching pools for workers in specific vital trades, like childcare or elder care.
Or community foundations.
Exactly. Community foundations incentivizing savings for local residents. It even opens the door for family members, say, a grandparent, to directly seed a young worker's federally sponsored retirement account.
It drastically broadens the capital pipeline for low-income earners. It transforms the retirement account from a closed two-party system between employer and employee into an open platform.
An open platform. I love that phrasing. But while private donors represent a fascinating future possibility, the immediate financial engine of this proposal relies on federal capital.
Right, the government match.
Yeah. The State of the Union address explicitly promised, we will match your contribution with up to $1,000 each year.
Which is a very specific dollar amount.
It is. So let's break down the actual dollars and cents of that promise, because this is where the legislative history gets really interesting.
Let's do it.
This $1,000 match is not a completely new concept being drafted from scratch today. The White House initiative is actually co-opting and building upon a provision that is already written into law.
It relies heavily on the mechanics of the Secure 2.0 federal law.
Right, which was passed by Congress back in 2022.
So the legislative architecture is already in place. Within the Secure 2.0 legislation, there is a specific program called the Savers Match.
Savers Match.
Yes. This is the exact mechanism that will provide the government matching contribution for these proposed universal accounts.
Okay, so the match is already on the books.
It is, and it is crucial to note the timeline here. While the administration is pushing to roll out the accounts themselves next year, the Savers Match program is legally slated to begin in 2027.
Okay, so the infrastructure of the accounts might go live in the near term, but the federal matching funds component is a 2027 event.
Correct.
Got it. So how does this Savers Match actually work?
It's straightforward, but incredibly impactful for the demographics we are talking about. It provides a 50% match on up to $2,000 of contributions for eligible low-income taxpayers.
Okay, so I put in 2,000.
Right. And for a worker who qualifies, managing to save that $2,000 of their own money over the course of a year guarantees a $1,000 injection directly from the government.
That is huge. The immediate return on investment for those specific tax brackets is unprecedented.
It really changes the math.
Because historically, the tax code has heavily incentivized retirement savings for high-income earners.
Exactly.
If you are in a top marginal tax bracket, deducting a $20,000 contribution to a traditional 401k saves you a significant amount of money on your tax bill.
A very clear benefit.
But if you are a low-income earner paying very little in income tax to begin with, a tax deduction offers almost no immediate benefit.
The Savers Match flips that incentive structure completely.
By offering a direct, flat-rate matching contribution.
Yes. It provides a tangible, highly visible reward for workers who are struggling the hardest to allocate capital away from their immediate living expenses.
It's so direct. You put in $2,000, you get a 50% return on that money from the federal government on day one, before the market even does anything.
It fundamentally rewrites the math of saving for a massive portion of the country.
It really does. And understanding that this mechanism was passed back in 2022 brings us to the broader historical context of this entire concept.
Because ideas of this magnitude rarely appear out of thin air on a Tuesday night in Washington.
No, they do not. Policy evolution is almost always a slow burn, and our sources point out a very specific historical precedent that mirrors the current proposal almost line for line.
It's a piece of legislation known as the Retirement Savings for Americans Act.
The RSAA, I found the timeline of that act really compelling when looking through the notes. It indicates that the Retirement Savings for Americans Act was first introduced in Congress in 2022.
Which, not coincidentally, is the exact same year Congress managed to pass the Secure 2.0 law containing the Savers Match.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
There was clearly a bipartisan recognition in 2022 that the retirement infrastructure was failing a large segment of the population.
The writing was on the wall.
Yes. The aims of that 2022 bill were practically identical to what the administration's proposing now. It sought to establish portable retirement accounts for workers without access to employer-sponsored plans.
Check.
And it aimed to provide matching contributions to low and middle-income workers to incentivize participation.
Check. So it has literally just been sitting there as a blueprint for years.
Yes, waiting for the right moment.
And the sources note that this exact bill was actually reintroduced very recently, in May of 2025.
Barely a year ago.
Yet despite being introduced in 2022 and again in 2025, the text explicitly notes that the legislation has yet to gain traction.
And that phrase, yet to gain traction, is very telling. It highlights the friction inherent in passing structural economic reform.
Even when everyone sees the problem.
Even when a policy addresses a mathematically verifiable problem, like 42% of the workforce lacking access, it often requires a specific catalyst to move from a congressional committee to the center stage of the national agenda.
So I want to turn this directly to you, listening right now. What stands out to you about the timing of this new push?
It's the critical question.
We have this legislative blueprint that has been floating around since 2022. It couldn't generate enough momentum to become law on its own. Now, suddenly, the core concepts of that exact bill are being elevated to the State of the Union address.
Packaged as a flagship initiative.
Packaged as a flagship initiative, promised for next year. It forces you to consider what economic pressures or shifts in the labor market have intensified over the last 3 years to suddenly give this idea the oxygen it needs to become a priority.
Often it requires a critical mass of economic anxiety to push structural reform forward.
Like inflation and housing costs.
Yes. The post-2022 economic climate, marked by inflation, the rising cost of living, and the increasing visibility of the gig economy's financial fragility. All of this has likely forced policymakers to acknowledge that relying on the traditional employer-sponsored model is no longer tenable for half the country.
It's just not working. So let's pull all of these threads together to look at the overarching macro impact.
The picture.
The big picture. We have established the problem, the massive gap in access that leaves 42% of private sector workers without a plan.
Standing outside the velvet rope.
Exactly. We have explored the solution. TSP-style universal accounts that are highly efficient, fully portable, and open to private donors.
And we have outlined the mechanics, utilizing the 2022 Secure 2.0 law to deliver a $1,000 savers match starting in 2027.
So the question becomes, what is the ultimate end game of overhauling the system this drastically? What is the goal here?
The sources outline a very clear, two-pronged ultimate goal for expanding this access. The underlying logic is highly pragmatic. Expanding access and offering direct financial incentives will fundamentally encourage more people to save.
Getting them in the game.
Yes. If millions of everyday Americans begin aggressively building their own compounding nest eggs, the first major macroeconomic impact is a potential reduction in their total reliance on Social Security.
Oh, that is a crucial point regarding the long-term solvency of the nation's safety nets.
It really is.
If a massive swath of the population reaches retirement age with zero private capital, they are entirely dependent on their monthly Social Security check just to survive.
Which puts immense strain on the system.
Right. By incentivizing private capital accumulation now, you are essentially offloading some of that future pressure.
Precisely. It creates a buffer. And the second major impact flows directly from the first. By ensuring that workers have independent, portable savings alongside whatever Social Security benefits they eventually receive, the overarching goal is to significantly boost the overall standard of living for future retirees.
So they aren't just surviving.
Right. We are talking about the difference between a demographic that is merely scraping by in their later years versus a demographic that maintains a degree of genuine financial autonomy and comfort.
It is an attempt to use federal mechanisms to bridge a massive gap in the private sector, changing the financial trajectory of millions of people's final chapters.
It's a bold ambition.
Very bold. It takes an idea that has been struggling to gain traction for years and positions it as a structural pillar for the next generation of workers.
It could redefine retirement.
It really could. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We have stuck strictly to the mechanics outlined in the sources today, but looking at the sheer scale of this proposal, it naturally leads to a fascinating question about the future of the American workplace.
I'm curious where you're going with this.
Well, if a government-sponsored, fully portable retirement account with matching funds actually becomes a reality, how might this fundamentally change the way small businesses and gig economy platforms structure their benefits moving forward?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Think about it. Will the traditional company 401k eventually become a relic of the past if a universal, highly efficient public alternative exists?
The private sector would have to adapt.
Exactly. If you are a small business owner currently paying exorbitant administrative fees to maintain a private 401k plan for your 15 employees, do you eventually just drop it and tell your staff to sign up for the federal universal account instead?
It would certainly save the business owner a lot of money and compliance headaches.
Right. This initiative is designed to help the workers standing outside the velvet rope, but it could completely rewire the employer-employee relationship and the entire benefits industry in the process.
That is exactly the kind of structural ripple effect we have to monitor when a policy of this magnitude is introduced into a complex ecosystem. It seeks to solve one specific problem, but in doing so, it has the potential to alter the entire financial landscape.
And that is exactly why we do these deep dives, to look past the political rhetoric and see all the angles of the actual machinery. Thank you so much for joining us and exploring the mechanics of this proposal today. It has been a genuinely fascinating look at the future of savings.
It certainly has. It is always a pleasure to break down the complexities and analyze the data with you all. Keep questioning the structures around you, keep analyzing the details, and we will catch you next time.
Stay curious, everyone.